My name is Claire Whitaker, and I was 32 years old when my mother remembered how to summon me. 4 days after Hearthline Systems hit the financial press with a $312 million valuation, my phone lit up during our Monday morning meeting in Minneapolis. Someone had taped the article to the glass wall outside the conference room. My employees were laughing too loudly, the way people laugh when they are tired and relieved at the same time. There was coffee on the table, a half-eaten box of grocery store pastries, and my COO, Mara Ellison, was trying to convince me to give one quote to the local business journal. Then my mother's name appeared on my screen. Evelyn Whitaker. She had not called me in 11 months. She still mailed birthday cards in her careful church handwriting, always signed, Love, Mom and Dad, always with nothing inside that could become a real conversation. The text had one line. Sunday dinner, your father says it's time. Don't make this difficult. No congratulations, no question mark, not even my name. Just a summons. I stared at it until the letters stopped looking like words and started looking like a door I had locked 7 years earlier. Around me, my company kept breathing. Phones rang. Someone mentioned our Series C. Mara asked if I was okay. I told her yes. That was not completely a lie. Because under the bottom drawer of my desk, beneath vendor contracts and old compliance notes, was a blue folder labeled CareBridge Ledger Open Items. I had not opened it in almost a year, but I knew every page inside it. 18 client transfers, 1 scanned signature, 1 missing truth. I touched the drawer handle and looked back at my mother's message. They were not inviting me home. They finally needed something. Please subscribe to support the channel. Here is a fun little challenge. I bet you are watching this video while lying down with your legs crossed right now. If I guessed correctly, type 3 in the comments. If not, type 4. Let's see how many viewers I got right. And if you enjoy this story and would like to support our team, please consider buying us a cup of coffee through the link in the description. Your support helps us continue creating more meaningful, emotional, and captivating stories for you. Thank you so much for your kindness and support. All right, enough talking. Let's begin the story. To understand why that text landed in my office like a threat instead of an invitation, I have to take you back 7 years, before Hearthline, before the investors, before anyone outside a few counties in Pennsylvania knew my name. I was 25 then, living in Pittsburgh, working out of a narrow rented office above a pharmacy that smelled like toner, dust, and peppermint cough drops. The sign on the door said CareBridge Ledger, slightly crooked because I had measured it myself. I was proud of that mistake. I had paid for it with soup dinners, skipped haircuts, and a checking account that never stayed above 4 digits for long. CareBridge was not born from a pitch deck. It was born from my grandmother missing 2 doses of heart medication after she came home from the hospital. Not because nobody loved her. That would have been easier to blame. It happened because everyone thought someone else had called. The nurse thought my aunt had the updated schedule. My aunt thought the discharge coordinator had sent it to my mother. My mother thought my father had put it in the kitchen drawer. By the time anyone checked, Grandma Lillian was back in an ambulance, frightened and asking why everyone looked so upset. I remember standing in that hospital hallway, holding a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold, thinking aging in America could turn a whole family into a room full of people pointing at each other. So I built CareBridge Ledger to make sure there was one place where the truth lived. Medication changes, caregiver visits, physical therapy appointments, notes from home health aides, grocery alerts, fall risks. The small things that become disasters when nobody writes them down. It was not glamorous software. It was not something young founders bragged about at rooftop parties. But it mattered to people who still wanted to sleep in their own beds. Mara Ellison understood it immediately. She was a nurse practitioner with tired eyes, quick hands, and a voice that could calm an angry daughter and a confused father in the same sentence. She became my first partner, though for the first 6 months all I could pay her with coffee, gas money, and the promise that one day this would matter. Our first real account came from Arthur Dempsey, a 72-year-old retired nonprofit director who ran a veterans home care network outside Harrisburg. Arthur wore pressed shirts, kept a paper calendar in his jacket pocket, and asked better questions than any investor I would ever meet. He did not ask how fast we could scale. He asked, if Mr. Hanley's son lives in Arizona, who tells him his father stopped eating breakfast? That was the kind of question CareBridge was built to answer. Within 18 months, we had 18 elder care accounts across Pennsylvania and Ohio, helping coordinate care for 614 seniors. Not a huge company, not glamorous, but real. Every account had a name behind it. Every schedule belonged to someone's mother, someone's father, someone who still wanted a normal Tuesday, if the world would just organize itself enough to let them have one. And that was when my family started paying attention. Not with pride. Pride has warmth in it. This was something else. My father, Martin Whitaker, owned a home medical equipment business 20 miles away. My brother Brandon ran a small home care agency with 3 vans, 2 bad Yelp reviews, and a payroll problem nobody called a payroll problem at dinner. At Sunday meals, Dad began referring to CareBridge as our little care platform. The first time he said it, I corrected him gently. Mine, I said. CareBridge is mine. He smiled across the roast chicken and said, of course, Claire. Yours. But my mother lowered her eyes to her plate, and Brandon kept eating like the correction had not been worth hearing. That was the first time I understood they were not misnaming my company. They were rehearsing ownership. The morning they came to my office, I was preparing for the Dempsey renewal call. I remember that because I had written one. 2M annual in the corner of my notebook and circled it twice. Not because I was greedy, because that number meant breathing room. It meant hiring 2 more care coordinators. It meant Mara could stop working Saturdays. It meant CareBridge could finally become sturdy enough that no one in my family could call it cute and still sound reasonable. At 8:20, the bell over the pharmacy door downstairs rang, and a minute later my father walked in without knocking. My mother followed him, wearing her beige church coat, the one she wore when she wanted people to mistake softness for innocence. Brandon came last, holding a paper coffee cup and looking around my office like he was touring a house he had already decided to buy. Walter Pike paused near the filing cabinet. Mara stood beside the printer with the Dempsey packet in her hands. Dad did not ask if I had time. He sat at the small conference table, placed a navy folder in front of him, and said, we need to talk before you embarrass this family. I looked at the folder before I looked at him. Good morning to you too. Mom gave me that warning smile mothers use when they want you to behave in front of witnesses, even when they are the ones who brought the witnesses. Then Dad opened the folder and said, the Dempsey account is moving to Brandon. For a second, nobody spoke. Even the printer stopped humming like it had enough sense to stay out of it. That is not happening, I said. Brandon leaned back in his chair. Claire, I already have caregivers and service contracts. You have the scheduling layer. It makes sense, I asked. It makes sense to who? Dad answered before Brandon could. To families, to seniors, to everyone tired of you acting like coordination is the same thing as care. Mara's face changed, but she stayed quiet. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. Arthur Dempsey signed with CareBridge because he wanted transparency, I said. Not because he wanted our last name on an invoice. That was when my mother took a tissue from her purse, though she had not cried yet. Your brother has a daughter, she said softly. You have ambition. Those are not the same kind of need. She said ambition. The way other people say a habit you should have outgrown. I wish I could tell you I had some perfect answer. I didn't. That sentence landed too deep. It found every room in me where I had wondered if being unmarried, childless, and building something made my future easier for them to dismiss. Dad slid the folder closer. Family doesn't compete with family. You'll transfer Dempsey by Friday. Mara stepped forward. Mr. Whitaker, Dempsey has not authorized any transfer. My father looked at her as if the furniture had spoken. This is family business. Behind him, Walter's eyes dropped to the folder. Later, I would remember that. The corner of one page had slipped out beneath Dad's hand. A client authorization packet. My signature visible in blue ink. I did not know yet why he had brought it. I only knew that when I said no, my father stood in the office I had built and smiled like refusal was a temporary technical problem. By Friday, I would learn he had not come to ask for a transfer. He had come to make sure my name could be used without me. Friday came and went without my signature. I spent that morning on calls with Mara and Arthur, confirming in writing what should have been obvious to everyone except my father. Dempsey Veterans Home Network was not transferring anywhere. Arthur's email arrived at 11:06 written in his careful, old-school style. Complete sentences. No emojis. No wasted warmth. CareBridge Ledger remains our selected coordination provider pending board renewal next month. No authorization has been given to transfer account management. I printed it, highlighted the last sentence, and taped a copy to the edge of my monitor like a small flag planted in sane ground. By Monday morning, that sane ground had started to move. The first call came from a woman named Patricia Klein in Akron. Her father had Parkinson's, 2 home health aides, and a daughter in Arizona who checked his care notes every night before bed. Patricia did not say hello. She said, "Why can't I see my father's schedule?" I pulled up her account. The calendar had not vanished from our records. It had vanished from her view. I told her it looked like an access issue and promised to call back in 10 minutes. Then line 2 lit up. Then line 3. Within half an hour, Mara was standing at my desk, with her hand over the receiver and her face drained of color. "Claire," she said, "Dempsey families are being redirected to Whitaker Family Care." I laughed once, because my brain reached for the wrong reaction before the right one could arrive. "That's impossible." She did not answer. She turned her monitor toward me. On the screen was an email forwarded by one of Arthur's coordinators. The subject line read, "Client Care Transition Notice." The letterhead looked like ours. The formatting looked like ours. Even the footer carried the old zip code typo I had been meaning to fix for months. The letter said, CareBridge Ledger was restructuring operations to better support long-term care families. It said selected accounts would now receive expanded service through Whitaker Family Care. It said the transition had been personally authorized by me. At the bottom was my signature. I stared at it for so long, Mara said my name twice. "That's yours," she said finally, not accusing me, just stating the worst part. "It's mine," I said, but I didn't put it there. The room got smaller after that. Walter came out of the storage closet holding a stack of invoices and stopped when he saw our faces. I printed the letter and laid it flat on the table. Walter put on his reading glasses, bent over it, and did not touch the page right away. Old bookkeepers have a way of treating paper like it might confess if you give it enough silence. He looked first at the letterhead, then the date, then the signature. "Do you have the original?" he asked. "No. A client forwarded this." He nodded slowly. "Then don't argue with the name yet. Names are easy to look at. Pressure is harder to fake." I did not understand what he meant then. I only knew my own signature had become evidence against me. Arthur called at 1:42 p.m. His voice was not angry. I wish it had been. Anger would have given me something to push against. Instead, he sounded tired. "Claire," he said, "I have 4 families asking why you moved them without a meeting." I said, "I didn't." There was a pause. I could hear papers shifting on his desk. "I believed you would tell me yourself if something changed." He did not say it like an accusation. He said it like an old man carefully setting down a cup before his hand shook. Arthur was not talking about software. He was talking about the kind of trust built one returned phone call at a time. By the end of the day, 6 families had forwarded the same notice. Same wording, same letterhead, same signature. Mine. Mara stayed late with me, comparing each copy on the conference table. Walter stood behind us with his arms crossed, quieter than usual. On the 4th letter, I saw it. The tail of the W in Whitaker cut off at the same strange angle every time. Not similar. Identical. Like a little piece of me had been lifted from somewhere else and stamped wherever they needed obedience. Then I remembered the blue ink authorization sample my father had carried in that Navy folder. 3 months earlier, he had asked me to sign one template page so Brandon could understand compliance language. One page. Boring, harmless, family helping family. I looked at the signature again, enlarged on Mara's screen to 300%, and felt the floor tilt. This was bigger than an account transfer. Someone had found a way to make my name say yes after I had already said no. That night, I drove to my parents' house with the 6 letters printed in a folder on the passenger seat. By then, the office had gone quiet in that exhausted way. A place gets after bad news has used up all the air. I had not planned to go. Mara told me not to. Walter told me to make copies first, which I did, because Walter believed paper should travel in pairs. But after the 6th family forwarded the same lie with my name at the bottom, I stopped thinking like a founder and started thinking like a daughter who still believed evidence could make her parents flinch. My parents lived in a brick colonial in Cranberry Township, the kind of house with trimmed hedges, brass porch lights, and a wreath that changed with every church season. When I walked in, dinner was already set. Roast chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes in the blue bowl my mother only used when she wanted a meal to feel peaceful. Brandon sat at the table with his wife, Tessa, beside him. Their daughter, June, was coloring on the rug with a purple crayon. No one looked surprised to see me. That was my first warning. I placed the folder beside my plate and stayed standing. Who sent these? My father did not reach for the papers. He cut into his chicken like we were discussing weather. Sit down, Claire, I asked again. Who sent them? Brandon leaned back. If this is about the transition notices, you need to calm down. Transition notices. He said it easily, like naming them made them clean. I opened the folder and spread the 6 copies across the table, one by one. June looked up from the rug. Tessa reached down and gently turned her daughter's face back toward the coloring book. This says I personally authorized the transfer, I said. I did not. Brandon gave a short laugh. You signed authorization documents. Don't act like you don't understand your own paperwork. I said, I signed a sample page for compliance review. Dad's eyes lifted then. Just a fraction. There it was. Not guilt. Recognition. Mom saw me see it and moved quickly, the way she always did when truth got too close to the food. She touched her necklace and said, Claire, your brother has payroll. He has caregivers depending on him. He has a family. And I had a company. Brandon shook his head. You still have your little program. Don't be dramatic. Tessa slid her phone across the table without looking at me, which told me she had read it before I arrived. On the screen was a post from the Whitaker Family Care page. A smiling stock photo of an elderly couple on a porch. Under it, the caption read, We are honored to continue serving the families formerly supported by Carebridge Ledger after Claire Whitaker's decision to step away from direct client management. I read it twice, then I read the comments. So unprofessional. Glad Brandon stepped in. My mom trusted that platform. Shame on her. This is why family businesses matter. The room tilted again, but this time I did not sit down. Take it down, I said. Dad's voice softened into the tone he used at hospital beds and church fundraisers. You can't demand the truth after you made people uncertain. Continuity was his favorite kind of word, clean enough to hide almost anything. I looked at my mother. You know I didn't write those letters. She did not answer. She looked at June instead. That silence did something the forged signature had not done. It made the whole thing colder. Because my mother did not need to know how the letters were made to know what they were doing to me. She could hear it. She could see it. And still, she chose the version where Brandon was rescuing families and I was making trouble at dinner. By the time I left, the post was still up. In the car, my phone buzzed with an email from a seed investor who had promised a follow-up meeting the week before. The subject line was polite. The body was not. Given recent concerns about client continuity and founder reliability, we are going to pause further discussions. I sat in the driveway with the porch light behind me and 6 fake letters on the passenger seat. The house glowed like nothing ugly had happened inside it. That was when I understood my family did not just need my clients. They needed everyone to believe I deserved to lose them. I did not go back upstairs that night. I sat in the car until the investor email dimmed on my screen. Then I drove to the office because I knew if I went home first, I would start feeling instead of thinking. The pharmacy below us was closed. The hallway smelled like floor cleaner and old heat. I unlocked CareBridge, turned on only the lamp above my desk, and opened a new folder on my laptop. I named it Open Items because calling it fraud felt dramatic, and I had been raised to fear sounding dramatic more than being harmed. Mara arrived before sunrise with 2 coffees and no questions. That was one of the reasons I trusted her. She knew when a person needed silence more than comfort. We started with the 6 letters, then the original Dempsey contract, then the authorization samples my father had asked me to sign 3 months earlier. Walter came in at 6:15, saw the papers spread across the conference table, took off his coat, and said, "Good. Now stop looking at what they want you to look at." He pointed at my signature. "Compare the pressure. A pen leaves hesitation. A scan leaves obedience." He showed me what I had missed. On every transition notice, the signature sat at the exact same angle, the same distance from the typed line, the same broken tail on the W. No change in ink. No pressure. No human hand. Then he asked about access logs. I pulled up the system admin panel and searched Brandon's trial account. He was supposed to have limited demo access, so he could understand how family updates worked. At 11:48 p.m., the Thursday before the notices went out, that account had exported a contact file tied to Dempsey family users' names, emails, phone numbers, relationship tags. Not clinical notes, not medication charts, but enough to move people if you already had the right lie. My mouth went dry. He couldn't do that from the demo settings. Mara leaned over my shoulder. Unless someone upgraded him. We checked the admin history. There it was. A temporary permission change from an account labeled MLW admin. My father had introduced MLW 2 months earlier as a favor, a harmless vendor review from people he trusted. I had let them look at workflow screens, not client data. I had not authorized them to change permissions. Walter wrote the timestamp down on a yellow legal pad, slow and careful, like the act of writing could keep the room from tipping. Then he said, "There was someone else here that night." I looked up. He told us he had come back late to retrieve payroll checks and seen Brandon near the copier with a man in a charcoal overcoat. Not my father, not anyone from CareBridge. The man had introduced himself too smoothly as Graham Lyle, from Silverpath Living Network. I knew the name. I had not mentioned him to Mara because I thought he was just another sales shark. Graham had pitched me twice on a referral partnership, smiling while he explained that home care was noble, but facility placement was where families found stability. I had declined both times, because his numbers treated seniors like rooms to be filled. That was the first morning I understood the shape of the thing. My parents were not only trying to rescue Brandon. Brandon was not only trying to take my accounts. Someone outside my family had seen 614 elderly people and their frightened relatives as a pipeline. And the next place to look was not inside my family. It was inside the business that had taught them how to turn care into inventory. For the next 30 days, CareBridge died in pieces. I spent that month calling banks, clients, and anyone whose voice still held even a little doubt. It did not happen all at once. That would have been cleaner. It happened in cancellations, unanswered emails, forwarded notices, and families who sounded embarrassed to be speaking to me. Dempsey went first, then the smaller accounts followed like chairs being pulled from under a table. By the 3rd week, 18 accounts were gone. 614 seniors moved out of our system on paper, as if trust were a subscription someone else could cancel with the right letterhead. On a Thursday afternoon, I came back from the bank with nothing but a folder of polite refusals. No lender wanted to bridge a company that had just lost its core accounts and was being discussed online as unreliable. I climbed the stairs above the pharmacy, carrying a coffee I had forgotten to drink, and my key would not turn in the office door. I tried it twice, then a third time, slower, because your body always gives reality one chance to apologize. It did not. A white envelope was taped to the glass. Inside was a notice from the landlord. My father had convinced him not to renew my month-to-month lease, and to sign Whitaker Family Care that same afternoon, all under the phrase business continuity. Continuity. That word again. Dressed up, and carrying a knife. Through the glass, I could see our desks, our printer, the crooked sign shadow on the wall, and Brandon's navy jacket hanging over the back of my chair like he had not taken the company, only borrowed my seat. He opened the door before I could call anyone. "Don't make a scene," Brandon said. "Seniors don't need drama." He said it standing inside the office, where Mara and I had answered daughter's calls at midnight and son's calls from 3 states away. I called my father from the hallway. He answered like he had been waiting beside the phone. "You changed the locks?" I asked. "We stabilized what you put at risk," he said. That was my office. There was a pause, not because he was ashamed, but because he wanted the sentence to land correctly. "It was never just yours, Claire. You built it with this family's name attached." Behind me, Mara came up the stairs holding a cardboard box. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "They let me take personal items only." Walter came last. He had his old leather satchel in one hand and a bank envelope in the other. He looked smaller without his desk behind him. Before Brandon could see, Walter pressed a small USB drive into my palm. "I copied the audit logs before they removed my access," he whispered. "Not enough for court. Enough to remind you you're not crazy." Then he walked past me down the stairs, one hand on the railing, because dignity sometimes looks exactly like leaving before they can escort you. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment between 2 boxes of office supplies and opened the USB. Timestamps. Export records. Admin changes. Enough smoke to prove there had been fire, not enough fire to burn down the lie. Then Arthur's voicemail came in. "Claire, 3 of my veterans missed physical therapy this week. I don't know what happened, but this isn't care." I closed the laptop and bought a one-way ticket to Minneapolis with $4,600 left in my account. I left Pennsylvania with proof that could not save me yet, and a question that would not let me go. If they had done this to me, what had they done to the people who could not fight back? 7 years passed before the question had an answer. I built Hearthline in Minneapolis, with that question sitting under every product decision like a second foundation. Mara came with me after 6 months, after she finished the contract work she needed to survive. We built the new system slowly, almost stubbornly. No account could be transferred without video confirmation from the authorized family contact. No caregiver schedule could be exported without dual approval. No outside vendor received permission changes without a written audit trail and a second administrator watching. Investors called me cautious. One called me paranoid. I smiled through those meetings, because paranoia was just experience with better lighting. Every safeguard they called excessive had a name behind it. Patricia Klein in Akron, Arthur Dempsey in Harrisburg, Mr. Hanley's son in Arizona. 3 veterans who missed physical therapy because someone treated care like a file folder. By the time Hearthline was serving families in 11 states, the old CareBridge folder had moved through 4 apartments and 3 office drawers. I rarely opened it. Once a year, usually in late winter, I checked that the files still loaded. The USB Walter gave me. Screenshots of the post. The 6 letters families had forwarded. Arthur's voicemail, saved under a name I could not bring myself to change. "This isn't care." I told myself I was keeping it because founders document things. That was only partly true. Some evidence you keep because deleting it feels too much like agreeing. Then, in February of 2026, a cardboard box arrived at Hearthline with my name written in careful block letters. No return label I recognized. Mara brought it into my office without opening it. "It feels like paper," she said. Only Mara would know that paper could have weight before you saw it. Inside was a note from Walter Pike, now living near Erie with his sister after a hip replacement. His handwriting had gotten shakier, but the first line was perfectly clear. "I held these because paper waits better than people." The paper smelled faintly of basement air and copier toner, like it had spent years waiting for a room where the truth could breathe. Under the note were folders wrapped in rubber bands, fuller API logs than the ones on the USB. Copies of all 18 client care transition notices. A photocopy of the blue ink authorization page my father had taken from me. A list of the family contacts exported from Dempsey. And then, beneath those, a stack of envelopes that had never been mailed. They were already addressed, neat and careful, waiting for letters that must have been spoiled or reprinted. I knew that handwriting before I let myself know it. My mother's loops, my mother's patience. My mother, who had looked at June, instead of answering me. I sat with those envelopes for a long time. Longer than I sat with my father's name in the emails. Longer than I sat with Brandon's access logs. For 7 years, I had survived on a version of the story where my mother failed to stop it. That version was painful, but livable. The envelopes killed it quietly. She had not just kept peace. She had put addresses on the lie and made sure it reached the families who trusted me. At the bottom of the box was a thin folder labeled Silver Path Referral Activity. Inside were payment summaries, internal notes, and one photocopied memo with Graham Lyle's name typed at the top. One line had been underlined in black ink, either by Walter or by someone before him. Push families toward placement. Home care is low margin. I read it once, then again. Then, I called Naomi Bell, the attorney who had handled Hearthline's compliance work since our first institutional round. I told her I had old documents involving unauthorized client transfers, copied signature pages, and possible elder care referral payments. She did not interrupt me. Lawyers who are good at their jobs know when a person is not finished bleeding. When I was done, Naomi said, "Claire, some of this may be too old for the courtroom you wanted 7 years ago." I closed my eyes. Then she added, "But if Silverpath is still operating on these referral practices, this is not only old." That was the moment the box stopped being a grave and became a map. Before we begin, please subscribe to support the channel. And here is a fun little challenge. Check your phone battery right now. If it is above 50%, comment 1. If it is below 50%, comment 2. Let's see which answer wins today. If you enjoy this story and would like to support our team, you can buy us a cup of coffee through the link in the description. Every contribution helps us continue creating more meaningful, emotional, and captivating stories for you. Thank you so much for your kindness and support. Now, let's begin the story. Naomi spent 3 weeks turning the box into a plan. Not a lawsuit, not yet. She was careful about that word. She built timelines, mapped payments, checked Silverpath's current contracts, and found that Graham Lyle was still regional director for 3 counties, still sending families from home care agencies into Silverpath facilities under language clean enough to pass through board meetings without leaving fingerprints. "If we go public too early, they call it a family dispute," Naomi told me. "If we build leverage first, they have to call it documentation." That was how North Porch Holdings came to exist. Naomi filed it quietly in Minnesota, a private vehicle with no Hearthline logo, no press release, no trace my father would recognize from a dinner table. By then, Whitaker Family Care was failing in slow motion. 2 agencies had stopped referring clients. Payroll was late twice. A local bank was holding the primary note and looking for a buyer before Brandon's books became their problem. Naomi asked me if I understood what I was proposing. I told her I did. I was not buying my brother's company. I was buying the right to stop him from using it as a shield. North Porch acquired the primary debt for $1,150,000. I signed the wire authorization at 7:14 p.m. on a Wednesday, alone in my office. with Walter's box open on the table beside me. The number should have made my hand shake. It did not. Money had a strange weight, after you had once lost everything over people pretending a signature meant consent. Naomi also drafted a second packet, stranger than the first, a patient, an employee stewardship trust that could take control if compliance breaches were confirmed. 27 employees protected, families stabilized, management reviewed by people who did not share my last name. While Naomi built the papers, my parents built the invitation. The financial article about Hearthline's valuation reached Pennsylvania, exactly the way good news travels in towns that once preferred bad news about you. First, a cousin liked it. Then an old church friend commented. Then my mother texted. Sunday dinner. Your father says it's time. Don't make this difficult. 2 days later, Arthur called me from his car. He did not say hello. Claire, your father is telling people you may bring Hearthline home. I almost laughed. Arthur did not. Men like Martin don't invite you to dinner. They convene you. The night before I flew out, I packed 2 briefcases on my dining room table. Into the first went the evidence. The 18 letters, the copied signature page, Walter's affidavit, the envelopes in my mother's hand, Graham's memo, referral payments, and Arthur's statement. Into the second went the documents Naomi said could be signed at a dinner table if I was truly prepared to cross that line. I closed both cases and looked at my mother's text again. They thought they were setting the table. They had no idea I was bringing the record. I flew into Pennsylvania on Sunday, under a sky the color of wet concrete. I rented a gray sedan at the airport and drove past roads I used to know by muscle memory, past strip malls, church signs, and medical supply vans that made my hands tighten on the wheel before I could tell them not to. I did not go to my parents' house first. I checked into a hotel 20 minutes away, hung my dress in the bathroom steam, and set both briefcases on the desk like they were breathing. At 6 o'clock, my mother opened the front door wearing pearls and her Sunday smile. There's my girl, she said, as if 7 years could be folded and put away with the coats. The dining room was set for performance. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, water glasses polished too bright. My father sat at the head of the table. Brandon was beside Tessa, looking thinner than I remembered. June, now 8, had a library book in her lap. Arthur Dempsey was there too, which surprised no one except my father, who thought Arthur still belonged to his version of the story. Graham Lyle stood near the sideboard with a glass of iced tea, and the relaxed posture of a man who expected other people to be nervous for him. My father said grace, slow and polished. Lord, remind us that family is the first institution of care. I lowered my eyes because everyone else did, but my hand rested on the handle of the first briefcase. Care, he said it like a clean word, like it had not been dragged through 7 years of paperwork and renamed profit. Dinner moved through small talk with the stiffness of a deposition. My mother asked about Minnesota weather. Brandon said payroll had been difficult, then looked away as if the sentence had escaped him. Graham mentioned regional care partnerships 3 times before dessert plates were even considered. Then my father set down his fork, touched his napkin to his mouth, and stood. Claire, he said, you have done very well. No one denies that. But success means responsibility. Whitaker Family Care is going through a temporary strain, and Hearthline has the resources to bring stability home. There it was. Home. The word they used when they wanted my work to forget who built it. My father talked for 5 minutes about legacy, community, continuity, and family. He said Brandon had preserved relationships I once started. He said Silverpath was prepared to discuss a preferred partnership. Graham nodded at the right moment, smooth as a closing document. When Dad finally finished, he looked at me with warm, reasonable eyes. It is time to put care back under one family umbrella. I set my fork down. Before I answer, I have one question. Brandon's knees started bouncing under the table. I turned to him. Who holds your primary note right now? His face tightened. That's not dinner conversation. My father's voice sharpened. Do not humiliate your brother. I kept my eyes on Brandon. Who holds it? He swallowed. Some private group. North Porch Holdings. They're not the issue. I opened the first briefcase, took out the filing page, and placed it on the table facing him. I'm North Porch, I said. I bought your debt 5 weeks ago. For a moment, no one moved. Even Graham's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Brandon stared at the filing page like it might change names if he refused to blink. My mother's hand went to her pearls. My father did not look at the document. He looked at me, and I saw him calculating whether the daughter at his table was still someone he could correct in front of guests. That is an aggressive thing to do to your own family, he said. I almost smiled, not because it was funny, but because he had finally used the right word for the wrong person. I didn't come here to discuss aggression, I said. I came to discuss record keeping. I took out the first folder and laid 18 letters across the table. One at a time, the paper made soft sounds against the wood. June stopped pretending to read. Tessa put a hand over her daughter's book. These were sent 7 years ago to families who trusted Carebridge, I said. Each one claimed I authorized a transfer. I refused. Brandon pushed back from the table. This is old. Arthur's voice came from the far end, quiet but firm. Old harm is still harm when people had to live inside it. My father said, Claire, you signed documents. I placed the copied authorization page beside the letters. I signed one sample page because you said Brandon needed compliance, language explained. Then I placed the enlarged signatures next to it. Every notice used the same image, same broken tail, same angle, same placement. Graham set his glass down carefully. That was the first honest thing he had done all night. My mother whispered, This is not necessary. I turned to her and opened the next folder. The envelopes slid out in a neat stack. Her handwriting changed the room more than my father's name ever could. Nobody had to be technical to understand addresses. Nobody had to understand software logs to know a mother's hand. You prepared the mailings, I said. She looked at June again, as if innocence nearby could still protect her. I was trying to keep the family together. I nodded once. Then why did you need my signature to make your version work? Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time in my life, my mother had run out of softer words to hide behind. I turned to Graham last. Silver Path referral activity, I said, and placed the payment summaries and memo in front of him. Push families toward placement. Home care is low margin. Arthur stood slowly, one hand on the back of his chair. 3 of my veterans missed therapy after that transfer, he said. One ended up in a facility his daughter had already declined. Graham's face stayed calm, but the color had left it. Brandon muttered, Dad said it would help everyone. My father snapped, because she always did everything first, built it first, fixed it first, carried it first. That does not mean she gets to keep it all. There it was. Not family, not care, not continuity, just entitlement. Finally tired enough to speak plainly, I looked at him across the table that had raised me, and said, Then you should have known my name was not yours to sign. My father's face hardened, but he did not answer. That was the closest he had ever come to confession. Naomi had told me not to expect apologies from people who confuse exposure with injury. She was right. Brandon looked at the papers, then at the table, then at his daughter. For once, June was not a shield he could stand behind. She was a child, watching adults decide what kind of truth they were willing to leave her. Tessa pulled her closer and whispered something into her hair. My mother kept one hand on her pearls as if prayer could still be performed with jewelry. I opened the second briefcase and removed the documents Naomi had prepared. North Porch is calling the note, I said. Brandon's chair scraped the floor. You can't do that. I can, I said. But I'm not here to destroy 27 employees because you used them the way Dad used me. I placed the Patient and Employee Stewardship Trust on the table. Whitaker Family Care's operating assets move into this trust under independent management. Employees keep their jobs. Current home care families receive written notice and review options. Silver Path receives no preferred referral relationship. Graham stood then. This is absurd. Arthur looked at him with the tired patience of a man who had spent his life listening to polished cruelty. What is absurd, he said, is calling a frightened daughter difficult because she wants her father to stay home. Graham picked up his coat. No one stopped him. By morning, Naomi would file the referral packet with the State Elder Care Board and send copies to every facility administrator whose name appeared in the summaries. That part was not revenge, it was maintenance. Some messes are moral, but some still need forms. My father read the trust papers with his jaw tight. You would take this family's business. I looked around the dining room, at the chicken going cold, at the envelopes in my mother's handwriting, at my brother's daughter holding a book she was no longer reading. No, I said. I'm taking my name out of your mouth. Brandon signed first, because debt has a way of teaching humility faster than love. My father signed last. My mother did not sign anything. She only said, Claire, after everything we gave you, and let the sentence hang there, waiting for me to complete it with guilt. I did not. I slid one final document toward Tessa. It was a separate education trust for June, funded with $125,000, unreachable by Brandon, unreachable by my parents, with Tessa as guardian trustee. Tessa read the first page and covered her mouth. Why? She asked. I looked at June, then at the people who had spent years using her existence as a receipt for their choices. Because a child should not have to pay for the adults who hide behind her. That was the only moment all night when I saw Brandon look ashamed. 6 months later, Whitaker Family Care no longer existed under that name. The employees voted for a new one, Steady Hands Care Cooperative. Arthur joined the advisory board. Mara helped them rebuild scheduling protocols. Every affected family received a correction letter with my signature on it, written by me this time. My parents sent one message through a cousin, saying they hoped I would stop punishing everyone someday. I deleted it without answering. I had learned the difference between punishment and consequence. Punishment tries to make someone suffer. Consequence simply refuses to keep lying for them. The last time my mother called, I let it ring. Not because I hated her. Hate would have kept the line open longer than she deserved. I was in Minneapolis, standing outside Hearthline's office while snow fell over the sidewalk, and my employees laughed through the glass wall behind me. My life had become quiet in a way I once mistook for loneliness. I touched the folder in my bag, then let my hand fall away. No one gets to call control family, and no one gets to call profit care. The lesson I took from everything that happened is this. Not every person who says family is offering love. Sometimes people use that word the way others use a key, to unlock your guilt, your silence, your labor, and the part of you that still wants to be chosen. And when they do, the hardest thing you will ever learn is that love without respect is not love. It is ownership, wearing a familiar face. For years, I thought being a good daughter meant understanding everyone else's reasons. My father's pressure, my mother's silence, my brother's need. I thought maturity meant swallowing the unfairness and calling it peace. But peace built on your own erasure is not peace. It is a quiet room where everyone else gets comfortable while you disappear. Family should be a place where your name is safe, your work is safe, your truth is safe. If the people closest to you only value you when you are useful, obedient, or easy to blame, then distance is not cruelty. Distance can be the first honest boundary you ever build. And still, the story is not only about betrayal. It is about recovery. Because losing everything did not make Claire empty. It made her precise. It taught her to protect others better than anyone had protected her. That is what resilience really looks like. Not becoming cold, not becoming cruel, but becoming clear. Sometimes life takes the thing you built with your whole heart and lets the wrong people damage it. But that does not mean your heart was wrong. It means your next life may need stronger doors, better witnesses, and fewer people standing inside it who believe love gives them permission to take. So if this story touched something in you, I hope you remember this. You are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that kept forgiving people just because they knew how to call you family. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to rebuild with your name intact. If you've ever had to walk away from people who should have protected you, share your story in the comments. And if you want more real emotional stories about family, betrayal, healing, and strength, please subscribe to the channel. Your voice here matters.